A couple of things I heard this week that really impacted me. One was about a Holocaust survivor, and she had lost all her family during the time of the Shoah. She'd lost her husband in the first battle for Jerusalem in 1948. She'd lost her sons in subsequent campaigns, and yet they said she shone. She absolutely radiated Yeshua. And one of the things she talked about, because she was a child in Poland, and they talked about the past, and she said, yes, I acknowledge the past, I just don't live in it. And it just really impacted me. And she's saying, yes, I acknowledge the past, I've processed the past, I've dealt with the past. The important thing is about the past is, don't live in it. So many people, the mistake they make is living in it and reliving it. But I thought that piece of advice coming from her means something. I think she was the one. They have a beauty contest for Shoah survivors at the home in Jerusalem, and she won the beauty contest at about 70 something. She was Miss Israel. Beauty is not just skin deep. And the other thing I heard, and again it impacted me, it was on the TV. And somebody said, this is something my mother used to say to me, that a tree without roots is just a piece of wood. Have you? Yeah. I thought, I like that. Yeah. A tree without roots is just a piece of wood. And I thought, I have to remember that. So we only watch the cultural programs.
I also heard something a believer said to a Jewish rabbi, what are you going to do when Jesus returns and you'll know that it is Jesus? And he said, no, that's okay. What are you going to do when you find out he's an Orthodox Jew?
Yeah, that I like. That I like. Muzzle top. So, this week, can a nation be born and then reborn in a single day? My answer, Israel. 1948. So this week in our Parashah, which I haven't put the name of, I've just realised, you have to look it up for yourself. Moshe spent 40 days and 40 nights up on the mountain. 40 days and nights sound familiar to you?
Time of tribulation.
And what's he doing up there? He's receiving a ketubah. And the ketubah is basically the promise of what the bridegroom will provide to the bride. And the ketubah is what happens before the marriage. They're two separate things. These days, the two are combined in one ceremony. But the ketubah is given at a betrothal. It's a betrothal certificate. It's not the nisuin. The nisuin is exactly the same, but it involves consummation. It's the consummation of the marriage. It's an event that's still to happen for us. So a covenant outlining a series of promises and obligations. And what he received up there was a new constitution for a new nation, which was about to be given a new promised land that had been prepared and cleansed for them. But as both Adar and Moshe find out, you can take the tribes out of Egypt, but it's not so easy to take Egypt out of the tribes. It's easy for people to come out of the church and the synagogue, but you try taking the church and the synagogue out of them. It takes a while. Old habits die hard, but they have to die. Hathor was the Egyptian cow mother. And the reason they worshipped her was she was the one who gave life and suckled all the other gods. Which is probably why Moshe had it ground down and made them drink it. Remember, he had the gold calf when they produced it? He had it ground down into powder and made them drink it. It was like, suckle this. Well, the reason they worship cows and other animals is because they believe in reincarnation. That you don't kill a fly because it could be your grandma. You know, basically you work hard, and the harder you work, you come back as a better class of animal. Which is why they've got the whole caste system in India, and why there's so much infighting, because you've got all these stupid little castes, and if you're in a caste above the other caste, you don't mix with them. She was the goddess of music, dance and fertility. Always those three things are lumped in together. Does that mean music and dance are bad? No, it just means who they were dedicated to. It's like money. Money isn't the root of all evil, it's how you spend it. Money is just money, it's what you do with it that makes the difference. It's the same with music and dance. You can either offer it to Yahweh, or you can offer it to the enemy. There's only two choices. I remember one of the people up in Auckland that taught Messianic dance was saying when she was brought up, she was taught as a dancer Greek dancing, and she had her own dance studio in her house, and that's what she taught, was Greek style dancing. And when she became a believer, she found it really hard to lose all of those habits of Greek dancing and come into worship dance. It was a whole different ball game. And she's saying, the difference in how I felt, but the struggle she went through to make that transition. So she was also a representation of all of the gods of Egypt. In Greece, they did and still worship her as Aphrodite. In Rome, as Venus. So what was Moshe's response? Whoever is for Yahweh, come to me. And who responded? Levi, who represents Midian, Aharon, and his own tribe. Then yet again he spends another 40 days and nights on the mountain. This is after he'd been up, come down, they got the golden calf. And he would spend another 40 days in Yahweh's presence without food and water. A prophetic event, as was the flood that took 40 days and nights. The spies who reconnoitred the land for 40 days, and their punishment in the wilderness was to wander for a year for each of those 40 days. That's why it was 40 years. Even Yeshua himself spent 40 days and nights without food and water in the wilderness as the new leader, the new Redeemer, the new Messiah of Israel. And then afterwards he spent another 40 days and nights with his Talmudim after he rose from the tomb. Coincidence? Of course not. These things happened for a reason. They were specific time periods for specific reasons. They were all prophetically connected.
Jesse, with the 40 days, he wrote on the footnotes. Because it's 10 days after that. So
Yeah. The question in Kings and to the multitudes today is, how long will you hesitate between two opinions? That's the question today to us and to other people. How long will you hesitate between two opinions? How long will you be double-minded? How long will you be unstable? And you think, I'm unstable. Of course you are, because your mind's split in two. You become schizophrenic spiritually. You have to be like the tree. You have to put roots down. You have to make a decision. Where are you going to put your roots down? If not, you're just a log of wood. Gets carried along by the river. So how long will you hesitate between two opinions? Yaakov says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. In Matityahu it says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And in Luke it says, no one who puts his hand to the plough and keeps looking back is fit to serve in the kingdom of Yahweh. And in Revelation it says to the Messianic communities, because you're lukewarm, neither cold nor hot, which is the same thing, I will vomit you out of my mouth. Why? Because somebody in that position is not trusting. They're not committed. And they're racked with fear. Fear and doubt are part of the same thing. And fear and doubt will always make you double-minded. Will always make you hesitate between two opinions. Oh, but what if I make the wrong choice? What if something better comes along? How many people have you heard that the reason they won't commit and get married is because, yeah, but what if I do that and then something better comes along? I miss it. It's not a way to live. It's not mature. And because you're fearful and because you're not committed, you rely totally on an identifying image of possessions, status and reputation. A status that Abba calls wretched, pitiable, poor, blind and naked, which is the true condition of the so-called spirituality that's displayed by the majority of today's religious establishments. And it's not just two opinions, but three. Yes, no, and maybe. Which is the hallmark of the double-minded and the lukewarm. It's a condition summed up in the word neutral. So many people think being neutral is great. Switzerland's neutral. Well, not really. They just hold all the money. Do you know what neutral actually means? In the dictionary it means colourless, lacking character, faceless, genderless, neither one thing or the other, lacking identity, unfeeling, indifferent, apathetic, procrastinating, a truly wretched and pitiable state to be in spiritually. So how many people now want to be neutral? They are members of the FSA, Fence Sitters Anonymous, a group that's reluctant to take a single step in either direction, in case it's the wrong direction.
What was the name?
The FSA, Fence Sitters Anonymous. And I've got bad news for them, because the fence is actually within the gates of hell. It's not in the kingdom, it's not even in between the kingdom and hell, it's actually in hell. And the enemy loves it, watching them all sitting on the fence thinking they're safe. All taking selfies of each other. Yeah. So many today want to be safe. World peace. Every Miss World wants world peace. They want no responsibility and they want no consequences. And they want to hedge the bets and have a bob each way. Or a foot in both camps, just in case. I told you about the Isle of Man, where when Wesley went over there in the 1800s, there was masses of people, all gave their hearts to the Lord. But what you'll find on the graves in the Isle of Man is they have the Christian blessing and the pagan blessing. They want a bob each way. It was just something to add to what they'd already got. So they still keep their pagan ways and their ideas and stuff like that, but they sort of add that to it. And even the churchgoers on Sundays, they go over this particular bridge, they have to mutter this particular thing to because the troll that lives under the bridge might get them. So they have to sort of say something, keep him happy. Yeah. These people want ear-tickling, flesh-comforting, fast food. They have a pick-and-mix mentality as they shop around from meeting to meeting to meeting. Books to books, CDs to CDs, DVDs to DVDs, to TV, which is populated by snake oil evangelists, salesmen who oblige with smoke and mirrors to fool even the elect, if that were possible. Isn't it good, that bit at the end? They can fool the elect, even the elect, if that were possible. They are desperately chasing the next big thing, and then wondering why they're depressed and disappointed, never really satisfied, never certain of anything, never planted and rooted in good productive soil. How many people know that if you pick up a plant and keep planting it in there, and then it gets fed up and they plant it there, and it gets fed up and plant it there, it's not going to do well. For it to do well, it has to be, you pick a spot, you plant it, you leave it. You just let it grow. They have no responsibility, they have no accountability, and they're suffering with a recurring identity crisis and wonder why their drama-filled lives lurch from one downward spiral to the next, after the exciting highs that they've craved for that make them completely unstable and unfruitful. It's no different than taking drugs. They're constantly looking for an adrenaline high, and they want to find the next big thing, the next spiritual guru that's going to make them feel good. But unfortunately with highs, when that is over, you experience the lows. Because they're not pumping you up and feeding you. That's not true spirituality. I've finished with childish things, now on to mature things. So many people are completely unstable and completely unfruitful because of it. Because they're chasing things all of the time instead of either following Yahweh or following the Baal. Baal is just another name for all the different gods that are not Yahweh. You may not realise it at times when you think you're chasing Yahweh, you're actually chasing the Baals. Again, it's not new, it's happened before, just like they did in the wilderness. Jeroboam sets up a northern kingdom. And what does he place in it? A golden calf. And we say, oh, we wouldn't bow down and worship golden calves. We do that every time we watch adverts on TV and want to buy the calf because somebody else has got it, or we want a better house because somebody else has got one. Or today's motto is, I want it and I want it now. I want it all and I want it now. Not the way it is. There's a little thing called delayed gratification. Something that my generation, and certainly this generation, doesn't know anything about. I'm starting to learn it now. So he places a golden calf in Bethel and Dan, in direct opposition to the temple in Jerusalem. And today the world's infested with multitudes of Baal-type figures. Roman, Greek and Eastern idols, and multitudes of religious buildings, houses and gardens. Every time I watch TV, somebody's got one of these Buddha statues in their garden, or Buddha statues on top of their furniture, or something like that. My own daughter has got this horrible looking thing stuck on a balcony now, this laughing Buddha, whatever it is. Her husband brought it and stuck it on the balcony. I don't understand the fascination with it, apart from the fact the Australians are absolutely obsessed with Bali, and so all their furniture tends to be heavy, dark Balinese furniture, and all of their statues and artwork tends to follow that kind of thing. But overseas as well, you look at houses and things overseas, and everybody's got these little statues everywhere, and huge ones in the garden and stuff like that. You go into Catholic homes and there's little statues and little shrines everywhere.
even Dr. Martin's got one in his thing that you notice.
No?
Yeah,
it doesn't surprise me. But it's common now. It's accepted as normal now. Yeah.
But you know, by timing, he wants a statue in every room. This is the builder, I want a statue in every room. So when Harvey came to see him finish up, he said, "What are all these statues in there?" So well, he said, "You asked me." He said, "No, you're big enough to be a statue."
Today's golden calves are dedicated to false gods and they're bowed down to by millions of idol worshippers. Today has a pantheon. The Romans had a pantheon, and every time they conquered a new nation, they brought all of the idols, all of the gods into this pantheon, and they just became integrated into the Roman pagan religion. When the Christian things came in, when all the other things came in, then when the Babylonian mystery religion came in, and if you actually look at the way they do things in their churches, the Catholic churches, you will see a lot of those symbols have all been incorporated into the way they dress, the stuff they've got in there, and the way they do things. So today we have a New Age pantheon, a new pick and mix. So the Roman temple, the pantheon, was dedicated to every god. And you hear people today saying, all roads lead the same, every road leads to the same God. No, it doesn't. It's spaghetti junction. They go all over the place. They're making the same mistake as they did then of trying to mix the pagan with the sacred. And it's a practice that will always, always result in a complete absence of holy and sacred. As Eliyahu says, if Yahweh is Elohim, or God, then follow him. But if it's Baal, the false gods, follow them. But get out of the valley. Choose one way or the other. Make no mistake, there is no fence. There is no middle ground. There is no neutral. In fact, it will open up and swallow those trying to sit on it or stand on it. We have to decide. We must make a choice. We must serve Yahweh with all of our heart, soul and strength. Because where our heart is, our treasure is. And that will dictate our direction in life. We cannot serve two masters. We will either love one and hate the other, or scorn the first and be loyal to the second. There is no neutrality. We have to choose. There's no middle ground, no compromise. If you're at a crossroad, you've got three choices. You either go one way or the other, or fence it. Just stay where you are. Just in case going either way might be right or wrong. And what you do is you settle for living in fear, doubt and procrastination. People today, we are going to have to start making firm decisions to either continue to follow one of the multitude of famous religious dictators, political dictators, family dictators, corporate dictators, or the only real person worth serving because he always tells us the truth, our Abba, our loving Father, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak and Yaakov. Yahweh, who is the same yesterday, today and forever. He's compassionate. He's slow to anger. He's abounding in grace and absent from any of today's man-made pantheons. Even the ones that put up little crosses and signs and say that they are the ones to follow because they are serving him. But then prove the opposite by their actual daily behaviour and actions. Like I said, talk is cheap. It's the fruit that they produce that tells you where they're at. I don't care if they say they're following him. I don't care if they say the building's dedicated to him. You tell them by their actual daily behaviour and actions. He's got his own temple anyway, in his own kingdom. And so far he's been more than tolerant and patient. But today he's issuing an ultimatum. as he speaks loudly to those who have an ear and incline it, ready and willing to hear what he says. And he's saying to them, choose. If it's me you want to follow, you have to do it my way. My methods, my timing, my direction, my Torah. And my son, Yeshua HaMashiach. My Ruach HaKodesh. My festivals, my Shabbats, my truth, my life. With nothing added and nothing taken away. It's a complete package deal, or it's not a deal at all. And if you're not willing to do that, then just follow the rest of the goats, who follow the Baalim, the multitude of New Age. Make it up as you go along, so-called gods. But be warned and be very aware of the consequence of your decisions, because all paths do not lead to me, just the one. Yeshua said, no one comes to the Father except through me. There is no other way. But when you take that step and when you do that, be prepared to do it 100% or don't bother. He won't take lukewarm, half-hearted cracks at it. All other paths apart from Yeshua take you completely away from me, are an outright rejection of me, which means that you are following and accepting sin. And the wages of sin is death. So today is a special life-changing day. It's a day to decide, to choose, to trust, and to move forward. To not live in the past, but to leave it where it belongs. Tomorrow may not happen, or even next week, or even when you get around to it, or whenever it suits you. Now is the time to take that mature, decisive step to leave the crossroads behind and take part in the next stage of the journey. If you choose Yahweh and Yeshua, you have nothing to lose. If you don't, you have everything to lose. So what's the next step? Where are we going? What are we hearing? What is our response? What is our decision? What is it that we need to leave behind? And what do we need to take with us? Who of those who say they're committed are really with us and not just double-minded tourists, curious observers with their nose to the glass, fascinated with what's going on in the meetings, but they don't want to actually commit to it? Are they a committed part of Abba's body, working and living together, united with one heart, one soul, sharing everything that we have together and having all things in common? Fully committed to the health and growth of the body. Comprised of individuals, not religious denominations or their offshoots, and working to build it up in Ahava, unconditional love. We're very fortunate here in this Kehilat that the people of this Kehilat follow those principles. I'm very blessed by the fact that our people understand those principles and follow them. But whose footsteps are we following in? It's time to pray and check the size and shape of the footprints that we're following. If the Ruach doesn't confirm their real identity, then they're not Yeshua's. And if they're not Yeshua's footsteps, then you need to stop right now, because they'll take you in a completely wrong direction. Today is a time, if that's the case, to ask for new directions. So if looking back is a sign of regret, then looking forward is a sign of commitment. A commitment that we need to make based on trust. How do we do it? By allowing ourselves to be led gently but firmly by the hand into all truth. Have we got all the answers? Are we getting it right every day? No. What we're saying is just lead us gently. You know, we're not very bright. It takes us a while to pick things up. So just lead us gently and just, you know, give us one lesson at a time. That's all we're asking. All he's asking people to do is to take the first step, and then he'll lead and guide you on every other step. And he'll do it at the pace that we can handle. So we need to be led gently but firmly into all truth, even when it contradicts some of the things that we've heard before. It's a choice that we have to make. It won't come naturally. We'll listen to something and we'll think, oh, that's not right, that's not what I've been taught before, that's not how I do things. But we've always done it this way. Fine, how's it working for you? Sometimes you need to turn around and say, I'm going to take a step of trust, because anything's got to be better than this. We have to make the choice and let the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of Truth, who never ever contradicts Torah, because his word is final, the whole truth, not just somebody's man-made interpretation of it, not just some spirituality for dummies, or someone else's logical or illogical theories, or religious rules and regulations, no matter how nice or pious they are. And that's the deceptive part of it. Is some of these rules and regulations and traditions are so nice. They're so pious. They sound so good. Anyone or anything that's not pointing and leading you directly to Abba and only to Abba and his kingdom, just as Yeshua does, is deceiving you. It's a strong statement, eh? Yeshua never pointed anybody to him. He always pointed people to his Father and his kingdom. And if somebody's pointing you towards them and their ministry, or pointing you towards even Yeshua or to other things, then they're deceiving you. He said everything is pointed at the Father. Everything is dedicated to him.
It's funny, if that was actually told to the Orthodox Jews, maybe you'll be more believers.
Yeshua and his true followers will always, absolutely, 100%, always point you to the Father and not to themselves. Or to the organisations they represent. They will only ever say, follow me as I follow him or obey him, led by the Ruach who gives us all of the discernment or spiritual revelation necessary. Sometimes we just have to make a choice, not knowing where it will lead us, but trusting the person who's going to be leading us in that direction. Because we know who they're following. As a registered and appointed spiritual fruit inspector, not a judge. Lots of people want to be judges. No, we're not allowed to be that. But we are allowed to be specially appointed fruit inspectors. If we're not, then we can't be discerning. So we're not to be judges, but we're to be fruit inspectors. That when you're looking to trust someone in a leadership role, check out their actions on a day-by-day basis and match them with their words and make sure that they're actually listening to and following Yeshua. If they are, then they will love and forgive others in the body unconditionally. They will always aspire to practice what they preach. They will never promote themselves or let others do it for them. You will see the fruit of the Spirit at work in them on a minute-by-minute basis in their everyday lives. Not just when they're in front of a microphone or a camera. That's the true test. Anybody can stand in front of a microphone and a camera and say anything. It's putting it into practice. I don't just want to understand the rules, I need to keep them. They will be obedient to all 100% of His commands and will always give you the freedom to choose or reject what they have to say. Once they've compared what you've said with Torah. And in fact, they will always encourage you to check with Torah. They will never ever try to control you in any way whatsoever. Because they will always offer you the same free will and forgiveness that they've received themselves. If somebody's trying to control you, they're not following Him. Control comes from the enemy, and control is based on insecurity. As His body, it's time for us to stand up and be counted and stop supporting the quicksand of religious empires, the corrupt systems that are declining rapidly as they undertake the process of being measured and found wanting, and therefore on their way to destruction. This is not that time for us. This is a time for restoration of His real body. Not the fake one that's been foisted on the world by a succession of wannabe claimants who have perverted the truth for centuries and continue to perpetuate the hoax with smoke and mirrors. A perpetual covenant is exactly that. It's perpetual. It never ends. And Adar expects us to honour all of them, just as He does Himself. And some people will turn and say, oh, that covenant's done away with. Oh, that covenant's finished. This, that and the other. There's only one covenant now, and that's the new covenant. Every single covenant is still in place. Everyone builds on the other. And if it wasn't that possible, there would be no new covenant, because it would have nothing to build on. All the covenants are still in place. They've all been built on. They are perpetual covenants. Not temporary covenants. There's no such thing. And the reason He expects us to honour them just as He does Himself. And not to do it through legalism or guilt or fear, but out of unconditional love, obedience and trust. Let's face it, whether you agree with all the civil laws in this nation or not, you will still be held responsible for breaking them. I've heard a couple of things this week about people standing up and saying, I don't recognise your authority, Judge. I don't recognise anything. I don't accept any judgment that you make because I'm outside of that system. I'm part of a different system. Do you think that saves them from going to prison? No. You break a traffic law and turn around and say, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not part of your system. I don't believe in it. So I'm not going to pay the fine. Guess what's going to happen? They will arrest you and put you in prison whether you believe it or not. And you'll pay a heavy penalty for breaking the national laws. It's the same with spiritual sin and spiritual disobedience. We pay a heavy penalty for ignoring them and not following them. If we commit spiritual sin or disobedience, and we know that we're doing it, we will be held accountable and pay a penalty for it. And the penalty for sin is very clear to anyone who reads Torah: spiritual death and eternal destruction. Like ocean liners or container ships, we as a body are designed for the open seas. People say, let's be fishers of men, and the first thing they do is stick them in an aquarium. Make sure it's just the right temperature to keep them happy, even though they keep banging into the glass. They think they've got freedom, they can see freedom, but they keep hitting the glass. No. That's not His kind of body. Whereas a body are designed for the open seas, not pleasure cruises around the harbour. We're designed as a body to take people and supplies wherever they're needed. We're built to withstand massive storms and navigate through any obstacles. Am I saying that everybody should leave for overseas mission fields tomorrow? No. But we need to stop just being nice. Everybody turns around and says, oh, we've got to be nice. We've got to do, be nice things and be nice. Abba never once told us to be nice. He told us to be obedient. Nice is a lukewarm word. As my wife reminds me, because I often use it. I turn and say, oh, that was nice. And she said, it wasn't just nice. It was a lot more than just nice. So I'm still learning that one. So we need to stop just being nice and get kingdom-induced radical. Whether we're serving right here in the middle of where we live or boldly going wherever He sends us. Today the existing teams out there are getting weary. No matter what nation they're in, no matter what country they're in, they're getting weary because there's few of them. The harvest field is white but the workers are few. And the few workers out there are doing all the work. And they're getting tired. They need reinforcements. They need encouragement. Because without a vision, yes, the people perish. But more importantly, without people, the vision perishes. So today, stop telling Yahweh about the overwhelming needs that you see and hear about. Stop reminding Him on a daily basis that He should do something about it. And tell Him that you are available and that you are willing to be a part of the solution. Pray therefore that the Lord of the harvest will send out workers to gather in His harvest. You, me. But as always remember, we are never to pray for something or someone that we're not prepared to be a part of the solution for. Or sometimes all of it. So today's bottom line, one that fence sitters absolutely hate, choose. They hate the word choose. They hate the word decide. So shalom poel and poelet, male and female workers, shalom. Yeah, saying I'm doing it tomorrow is arrogant. You don't know there's a tomorrow. As I've always said, we're always just one breath away from eternity.